Welcome everybody. I've called this an unboxing video, but actually I've already unboxed it because that part's quite boring, just taking it out of the cardboard. This is the Craft AC370WL wood turning lathe by Axminster. It represents, I think, good value for money at 399 quid. Certainly everything that I've seen and researched of this size is way more expensive. This replaces my Shepa 450, if I pronounce that right, which I've used for some time, which is a mini lathe. This is described as a midi lathe, but it is pretty big. I'm glad I didn't get tempted to go for a large size lathe or a maximum lathe, because I think I'd have struggled to get it in my garage. Anyway, so out of the box you get the lathe in two bits: the complete bed with the motor housing, the rest, and the rear stock, all attached to the bed. You could, I guess, if you wanted to, remove the rest and slide everything off, maybe if you were struggling to find somebody else to help you with construction. But out of the box, it's all there and readily slotted in one piece. So you build the legs. The manual is okay, but it doesn't really stipulate which nuts to use, which washers to use on which bolt. So for the stand itself, it uses these nuts that don't have any hex or recess, because it's got a square shank that fits into a square slot. So all you need to do then is apply the washer, which is the big flat ones for the base, and the nut, and just tighten it up and you're done. It feels very flimsy until everything's tight, and then it comes together quite well. There are two top plates, which you can see there, which then take the entire weight of the lathe once it's assembled. So I built the legs, put the tray on, and then came the task of introducing the bed with everything on it onto the frame. This is where I need to tell you to be extremely cautious. I enlisted the wife to help me lift. Obviously I had the motor end, which is the heaviest, but even then the pair of us were, we're in our 50s, we were struggling with the lift. I guess it's probably about 100 kilos in total. So yeah, it's probably best if you can get a couple of good strong people at the point of assembly who are going to actually do this lifting. So once we lifted it onto the base, I was acutely aware that while you haven't got the bolts in, it's just simply resting on that quite thin edge there, which is a little bit dangerous if you haven't got sufficient people to hold it while you introduce the bolts, because although you can align them up visually when you're putting the bed onto the stand, you still have to move it about a bit to jig the nuts through. And in that process, if it slipped off, with the weight of that motor housing coming down, you are not going to hold that. So yeah, perhaps not the best design feature. And I was glad once all of the 8 nuts are in, although I haven't tightened them up yet. They're still just finger tight, but it stops it slipping off. So there it is really. Just a couple of tips for assembly. And obviously if you're thinking of upgrading or buying a lathe of this size, it's nice to get a feel of the dimensions of it. I'm not a professional wood turner by any means. I'll retire very shortly, and I plan to get into turning a lot more than I do now. And obviously the next lathe, or this lathe up, will hopefully allow me to do some work for the next few years and get into it as a hobby. So thank you for watching, and once I get doing some turning, I'll post a few videos on this channel just to show how the lathe functions. Oh yeah, before I go, I should mention the accessories that you get. You get this base plate as standard. It's a 1-inch plate, so it's the same as the mini lathe. So if you've already got chucks that you've bought for your small lathe, then those chucks are still going to fit the spindle on this Axminster lathe. You also get a couple of centres, which they sent through the post separately. Nice stainless steel centres, which obviously just go into these recesses, and in the usual way you tap them out when you want to remove them. So that's it. If you're thinking of buying one, then as I say, from a construction point of view, £399 I think makes excellent value for money, especially as this entire headstock rotates to allow you, if you wanted to do some larger work. The whole rest swivels round in front of it. so you can turn the spindle outwards. And as I say, for that price, I haven't seen anything that has a rotating headstock for that money. So well worth it, I think.